Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're due to start. So if you're down the far end and want to come to where the action is taking place, then there's still a few seats down here. It'd be great to see your faces down here. And it's good to welcome our first team management team here. Unfortunately, we really, obviously, some of you know, I believe, that Gary Smith's had some very sad news of a family bereavement, and as a result, he's unable to be with us tonight. But we're delighted to welcome Tom and Andrew. So, first of all, in well-known tradition, let's give them a good round of applause to welcome them. Fantastic. Now, we have just a few formalities, just to say that we've got the Supporters Club representatives here tonight, and so if you want to join the Supporters Club, then they'll be delighted to see you. I think we've got some shirts for sale as well, and no doubt one of the questions tonight will be, what do you think of the new away shirt? And what will it do to the opposition's eyes? That's the most important thing. So, one face that perhaps some of you don't recognise up here is Tom over here, who's our new head of senior football. I think that's the official title, Tom, isn't it? Yeah. So grab the microphone, Tom. We're going to kick off by asking you a few questions, and just as a way of getting to know you a little bit. So we came across you last season, Tom, in the opposition dugout at Stratford Town. And when we actually look at your record at Stratford Town, it's damn good. 5th in the league, Southern, you won the League Cup, the Southern League, got to the playoffs. The big question is, why did you leave?
The recording, so I probably can't say a lot of it, I don't think. But we had, it was probably took the club, I felt at the time, I probably took it as far as I could. If you recall, when I joined, I think we were 4th, 5th bottom. Everybody knew the stance was probably to stay in the league. Obviously, from about October time, being 4th, 5th bottom, by Christmas we were third. And I just decided it was time for a new challenge. You know, very similar. Really, when I won the title at Kettering a couple of years back, I just decided it was time to do something new.
It was obviously a great season at Stratford, like you say, great record, and it's we're delighted to have you here at Tamworth to bring some of that success with you. So just, you hinted there about Kettering. Tell us a little bit about your football career to date.
More in the managerial sense, obviously as a Kettering, probably for about 6 or 7 years in total. Started an academy there in the Imran the Dak sort of days when we ventured from Rockingham Road to Steel Park to Nen Park to wherever else we played at the time, and started off with that. Then the under-21s, obviously ended up as working with Dean Thomas there, who was I think at Hinckley for about 15 years, something like that. Dean's obviously decided to concentrate on something else, so I basically took over from there. I think we got in the playoff final one year, won the league the next year. So aside from doing all that, also probably Norwich City is probably the best thing really. You know, Centre of Excellence manager for a few years at Norwich City. Enjoyed at the time dealing with all the young players, and so there's lots of young players dotted around in the higher leagues or whatever that thankfully I played a small part in to get them to a professional level. As I say, won the league at Kettering, decided I was going to go out and do something different on a Saturday. I thought it was going to last a couple of months. It probably lasted about 2 years, and even after that, it was a bit of a case because people don't understand how much time and effort people put into all of this, but especially when you've got jobs. And then just decided to make the comeback really, and but you know, I took the Stratford decision based on them, regardless of what else came up from there and what was the right thing to do.
Okay. Great, it's good to see you've got some great experience behind you. Norwich City and Kettering, we've had lots of battles with Kettering, so we're glad that you're with us and not with them anymore. So how did the move to Tamworth come about? Because when Dennis Green parted ways with us, and there was the initial sort of advertisement for the job, which obviously Andrew and Gary eventually got. Your name was touted about for the manager's job here. But how did this particular move come about?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you do quite well at something, you know, which has always been, you know, we had a conversation on Saturday. When you do quite well, you know, your name gets touted here, there, and everywhere. And I'll be honest, even up to the last number of weeks, you know, people were telling me stuff I don't know about where I'm going next, you know, to be perfectly honest with you. And they were sending me text messages saying, I see you've gone here and gone there, and it's just simply not true. I know Andy's here, and obviously Gaz isn't here. Although it's probably a bit more newer to the people that I was coming here, obviously, to be fair to Andy and Gaz, you know, they've been well in the loop for quite a while now. It's not something that's it's not something that's come in the last fortnight. You know, it's something that's been in the pipeline for a number of months now.
Super. And did you know Andrew and Gaz before the sort of that movement started to happen, or they new guys to you?
I knew them from a distance. I weren't even here at the time. I still think
So, what a lot of fans are asking, because we've not really had this role before, what's your role going to be, and how will that sort of work with Andrew and Gary?
You know, realistically, you know, people can call roles whatever they want to, and there's all different sorts of names for them. Ultimately, between us, you know, being honest, we're just a management team that's got to run the first team and win games of football, and it's just as simple as that.
And will you be on the bench, or in the stand, or singing with the fans? What will you be?
Throughout the course of the season, I'll probably do the whole lot, to be honest. But no, at the end of the day, you know, myself, Andy, guys, you know, we're speaking all the time at the moment, you know, to first things in the mornings and last things at night to get this squad together. Ultimately, between us, we've just got to make it work, and at the end of the day, all three of us have got to do whatever we have to do to try and win the league.
Absolutely, and that's what we want. One of the things that a lot of people noticed when Tamworth went to Stratford in December, you remember it, you won.
You can remind me if you want to.
One of the things that a lot of people said was that compared to Tamworth, the spirit that was in the Stratford Town play that night, and obviously when you came here as well, what do you put that down to? Because it certainly wasn't in our team at the
time. You know, you've got to get the mix right, and you know, people could sit here all day and talk about managers and coaches and everything else, but ultimately it comes down to players, you know, and as long as you get that right mix of players that believe. I mean, you know, for somewhere like it was Stratford's most successful season ever in their history, so the more that rumbled on, the bigger everybody got. You know, I had a goalkeeper who just used to say that before he went out to play, he felt he was about 8 feet tall and he was never going to concede a goal. You know, and that's our job. So that's how you've got to make them believe. You know, you've got to make people very, very confident, and you find a winning team. You know, a winning team is a good changing room. You know, when your team's winning all the time, you get very few injuries because everybody wants to play. When the team is doing well, everybody's there. It's when it's not doing well, the cracks tends to appear, but you don't see the cracks when you're winning games of football.
Great. So, obviously, we want to see that this season. So, let's move on to Andrew. Basically, what we're going to do is ask a few questions, then we'll be open to the floor for people to ask whatever question they want. But remember, you're on video tonight. You'll be on YouTube tomorrow. So, isn't that right? So, Andrew, it's great to see you. Now you've had a chance to reflect on last season. What are your thoughts? Because you must be pretty proud of the start that you made to your managerial career.
Given the opportunity, first of all, at Tamworth was massive, an opportunity that I've been looking for. I didn't know so much at the time, So I asked Steve Lathbury after the season if sort of he had a insight into that it's going to work in terms of the combination, which I didn't know if that was planned or just by chance at the time. I was delighted, really. A big thanks has got to go to the players because obviously it was on a difficult sort of ride under Dennis for one reason or the other, and their buy-in. You've got to have the players buy-in. Tom talked about having the players and the players do it on the pitch, and ultimately that's correct. The players are going to do it, but I look at some people in the dressing room and think without their buy-in, it could have went the other way. It could have been easy. The other one I've got to say some thanks to people at the club. I read sort of like the fans forum and the Facebook page. I don't really sort of like participate in it. That's obviously for the fans. But like Bob and Steve behind the scenes, for example, they come to every training session. One of them does. That doesn't happen. That I've not seen that before. I've been at Mansfield Town. I've been at guys in and around the first team, Mansfield Town Academy. What I used to go to session. You don't really see that, and I've seen them sort of. There's a buy-in from the committee. They want the club to do well. That's for sure. So then you've got people in and around like Mike Fowler spoke to me about the players, you know, and told me what players are this, what players are that. Same as George Delves sat down with me. So I've got to give some thanks to them people as well. So it did go really, really well. It was just the appetite to do well, the hunger, and have that opportunity to put the philosophy of myself having that chance to do that with the first team is a plus. It's well engaging as a coach / manager. So I was delighted with the results that we got.
And how has that how's that sort of learning experience, which it was for you, how has that sort of shaped your thoughts for the new season now in terms of the players that you wanted to keep and the players that you wanted to bring in, and that sort of where the key positions were?
I'm glad you asked that question, actually. Again, sort of, this is a family club, and the fans, they love the club. So when Chris Lake goes, it's let me tell you now. I thought the application in season and the work rate was going to be high. The application, Tom's touched on it already, out of season is higher. To keep players, it's not easy. Some players who have done well, Chris Lake's done well, and everybody knows that. So to keep him when a club's coming in from a high level and the lad's got an ambition to play higher, I must have sat down with Chris Lake for 4 or 5 hours at different times with Gaz, and you know, trying to keep him at the club. Same as Christian Green. So it's not an easy job when you come to off season and you've inherited a squad what's not yours originally, but then you've seen that there's some great players. So then what you've got to do is try and keep the ones you want to keep. And it's not easy because the ones you want to keep, generally, people want to take them. And then we've got to have some sort of like realistic, like Christian Green, for example, we wanted to keep him big time. You know, and there's obviously Ketz who's been announced today as well, unfortunately, which we'll come to. But there's some clubs in our team, our league, what have just got a massive budget, and they're just throwing silly money at it. And I'm going to openly say that to the fans. So I'm talking too much. Mine can't take it, but they've got us. When I mean a silly amount of money, I mean sort of sometimes offering double what we're offering. That's not easy to compete with in terms of trying to keep a player. So that when the fans see that, they think, oh, why are we going to let Christian Green go or Chris Lake? It's not something that we want to do. Joel Ketch, it's not something that we want to do, but you've just got to realize. In terms of what we did last year and going on to this year, part of your question, what we've got to be mindful is that we've hit something that's working. In terms of a philosophy, in terms of a coaching program, in terms of the dynamics, and it's important, Tom's mentioned it at the 3, that we don't change what's happening, because obviously the formula's working. We've got 31 points, I think, for 15 games, is to add what Tom's going to bring to the table in terms of experience and add to what we've got, not to change what we've got, because I can see, again, some disgruntlement of that, but it's to draw on the experience and the recruitment in terms of knowing the league, knowing the players, but then integrate that into what we're doing, because I just want to put that out that we're not trying to change things because the fans have got that worry or anything like that. It's not that. It's a case of Bob and Steve want the club to go up. So what they're doing is saying, okay, then this is what we're going to do. We're going to put this together and make it work, because our key is promotion. They're behind the scenes, and that's what they said. So it's about building on the progression what we had last year. And we've made some great signings as well to add to that.
Yeah, we'll come on to those, but if I could just say to the fans, as a fan, the secret to keeping a player is not to vote them as player of the season. Because every time they do it, they leave. So next year, if you can choose the worst player in the squad as player of the season, we'll be helping the management team try and keep the best players.
It'll get a great sign off for you, won't they?
So obviously the player of the season curse has struck again. We've lost Latey. But as you say, you can't blame the lad wanting to go and try in the high league at all.
Definitely not.
But obviously you talked about Christian. We've obviously lost Firms. We heard today about Joel. What are your thoughts on those guys leaving?
Well, first of all, what I'd say is this: is any player that we've signed or we've kept, I'm like, as a coach, I want the players, or a manager, I want the players, and Gaz is the same on short, it's to reflect you. So I'm hungry and burning to get as high as I can in football. I want the players to have that hunger. If they don't have that hunger, then they're not the right players for us. They've got to have an appetite to win. So Chris Slate wants to go and play higher. For me, that sort of saying, well, that player's got some desire and hunger to play higher, because as a footballer, that's what you should want to do, is to play higher. Now, the players that we brought in, and the players what it is, it's that message to say, right, you're going up with Tamworth, because that's the idea here, or you've got to have the ambition to go higher as a player, because if not, then you shouldn't be a footballer. So they're reflecting us as coaches. So with Latey going, not a problem, because he wants to play higher, and that was sort of his main goal. With Christian Green, I'm a bit more I'm gutted by it. I thought he was staying. Again, though, what you've got to take into consideration is he's just had a child. He just got married, so he's got some family circumstances, and like I said, there's clubs in this league that are throwing some ridiculous money at it, at this standard, some money that's more than what's going on in the conference, because I've been at guys and seen the wages. So when they come in and offer him that, sometimes money talks, and in that situation I'm very disappointed, because Green was nearly done, and it's just a case of he's gone to Starbridge, and he's got some history of playing for Ian Long, I believe, and he's been at Starbridge, so he's got some history there. So I think it's something in his heart that he had as well a little bit. And if a player don't want to be at your club, it's best that you let him go on, because then you're not going to get the best out of him. Yeah.
And Joel?
So with players, Joel Kettle did really well last year. Since we had 9 clean sheets, Joel was part of that. I've got to say as well, we don't just sign players for being the best players, we sign players for good characters or wanting to keep them. Joel Kettle was a terrific individual in terms of his people skills, in terms of being a captain. You can't keep everybody. So we've got sort of like, with Simon Nathaniel Turner, we've got Joe McGunder. You can't always have like 3 or 4 top quality centre backs, if you like, with a budget, because you've got to work within that budget. So we didn't want to lose Joel Kettle, but unfortunately we just couldn't come to an agreement with him, in the sense of getting it over the line, if you like. And because of that, he decided obviously to move on. And there was an offer on the table for Joel Kettle. Again, we've got to be realistic with the budget that we've got, and not from the right things. But Joel just couldn't take that for 1 reason or another. So again, sort of, it's another gutting feeling. But it's part of the process of football, and something that I'm learning obviously. And with Burns, he's gone to.
Don't say the name.
Okay, I didn't know it was that passionate here. I didn't know it was Tottenham Arsenal, but Burns has obviously moved on. And with Burns, we didn't get to see him play. In terms of, I didn't get to see him actually play on the pitch because he was injured. He got injured at the Biggleswood game, the game that before we came in. I've spoken to Gaz. Gaz said he's a terrific player. I've seen videos of him, very good player. I spoke to Tom about Burns. I think worked with him at one time or the other, and he's a very good player. But again, we have to manage a budget, and Burns has moved on for that reason, because he's got something that fits him and fits his family. And we've got to remember players have got families, so it's sometimes what fits their sort of lifestyle, if you like, as a norm.
So before I hand over to the floor for people to ask their questions, tell us a little bit about the new guys who are coming in, what we expect to see. I'm going to start with perhaps give Tom a chance to answer this one because he knows this guy because he was his captain last year, James Fry. Tell us about James.
It's on.
Is it working now? Yeah, James Fry, for me, it was very important to get him here for a number of reasons. Because obviously, you know, I've seen him over the years what he has done. He's a player who's a leader, and to be fair, hopefully people agree with this. The times we played here last season, there wasn't really many leaders on the pitch, and you don't get many leaders in football. And James Fry is a player who can play in numerous positions. He fits in with what we're trying to do. He's got a great past. He's got an attitude on him that will help him learn the way that the coaching, etc. is set up. And of course, like I say, he plays in a number of positions, which there's very few players, I think, that can play in probably 3 or 4 positions and be very, very good at all 3 or 4. So I think over the course of the season, you'll see exactly how important he is.
Fabulous. And the first guy announced was Greg Gazaboni. Tell us about him, how that signing came out.
So from last season, with a sort of month ago, you get a feeling obviously of players, clubs are coming in from, etc. We identified some players then. I remember doing the analysis here and seeing Casaboni score against Kings Lynn when we was going to play Kings Lynn, and he scored a great goal, and I thought, this is a player. Casaboni's good in 1v1s, he's got power and pace. He scored 14 goals last year. When the fans see him, if you can tell me he's stronger foot, I'll be quick because I still don't know it, because he scores with his left foot, scored with his right foot from range. He's got a work ethic about him. He's been at Northampton Town under AD Boothroyd, so he's been coached well. He's a good person. So that's sort of what struck me first in terms of his communicational skill. He's got a smile on his face, and he'll be good for the changing rooms. And I think he's going to excite the crowd because of his 1v1 ability and his ability to go past players with ease. And he presses the ball really, really well. Down there since we've obviously come in, I know the fans think my favourite word is press, but he presses the ball tremendously well. So I'm excited. Obviously he was, like I said, looked up last year because he did really well in the league, and that's that goes. So we got him over the line quite early doors actually. It was not long after the season finished that we sort of spoke to him within obviously the rules and that, and got him on board, if you like. So we're excited about him.
That's great to see him. And then the next person coming in was Aaron Ford from Stourbridge. So we nicked one of theirs.
Support player of the year, just to let you know.
Yeah. Exactly. It always happens. Get this player of the year and you leave.
Last year, obviously, to be fair, myself, Gaz, Tom, sort of was looking obviously going through the squad at that time. Before he came in a bit later. For what we felt that we needed in centre mid is we need some men in centre mid. I look at the Kings Lynn game away when we lost in the last minute, and I look at the average age of the team that day. Ryan Besley wasn't playing, Burns wasn't playing, and the average age of the midfield was sort of like 19 years of age. Charlie Shaw was in there, was a good player as well, but we needed some experience in there. And Tom just mentioned about leaders in Jimmy Fry. Fordy's a winner. He wants to win. He's got a hunger and a desire to win. We'll have to manage him sometimes in terms of his appetite for it, if you like. But he's a good technician. He's got a good background again. He's been at Walsall as a younger lad, and he played obviously at a good level of non-league. He's good on the ball and he's good off the ball, and he's not scared in away days on December when it's cold to get stuck in, and he will bring people up to the level if the standards drop. And what you need is leaders on the pitch who are going to say, hey, let's get on with this game now. You come and stand here, and Fordy's got that about him, and he's not scared to how can I put this now, constructively tell people, if their standards drop. So we're happy to get him in as a man in centre midfielder, and he can also get around the pitch as well.
Fabulous. It looks like a really strong midfield that you've got together for next season, as you say, leaders on the pitch. And then obviously it was pretty well forecast in the Northampton press about the next 2 signings. A week before we announced them.
I seen that. I was like, oh gosh, I can't believe it.
But yeah, so it was obviously leading scorer for Kettering, champions, and then the defender.
Yeah, so obviously I've seen some comments about sort of like what's Tom's role, and he knows the league very well, so he's understanding the players, he knows, and he's got that sort of history, which is important when you go for a title. But then at the same time, what I will say is that myself and Gaz, in terms of coaching and managing, that's one thing. So Gaz, I think, is tremendous at man-to-man management. He's so tactful with the players, it's unbelievable. And then the coaching side, and it's a blend. But then you've got to bridge that gap of recruitment. And the best players to speak to is the players in the changing room. So when people think, oh, do we know players? Not, you speak to players and you know the league. So I've got quite a few friends at Kettering as well, like Linda Meikle, for example. But so we spoke to the players, and Nathaniel Roturno, we've seen him and thought he's what we need. He offers pace and power in 1v1 defending. So it was sort of like we sort of like spoke to Nathaniel through players, and we identified him. So that's how we got the contact. So we've been working sort of, if you like, with Reece and Nathaniel for a while. Funny enough, obviously, with good players. Tom mentioned Reece at the time as well, later on as he come on board. And he was a hard target to get, because obviously he scored so many goals. But again, that shows the ambition of the club, that we're trying to win the league, and obviously Bob and Steve again, they backed us because it wasn't an easy one to get over the line. Someone who scored 27 goals in all competitions, and 17 in the league, and he's won 12 penalties and got several assists. I'm excited about Reece Onis in terms of 1v1 and his ability to score goals, and I think he can go play at a high level as well. So we're delighted to get them to him.
Fantastic, and obviously contribution of team builder to help you with some of those signings as well.
Yeah, when teams in the league have got sort of like a massive budget, and then you've got a club which has got a family atmosphere about it, and then you've got people behind the scenes who are working, as you mentioned, team builder, to get two key players as well who have just won the league. Without that sort of input on a match day, from their input of work around the ground and what they do away from football, you won't be able to get them players in, because and for me that makes the difference between having a decent squad and a very good squad. So without that input and the club, and that's what I said about the family atmosphere, is it just won't happen. So we're very, very grateful for T-Bull, because it gives us better players to work with as a management.
Fantastic. Lovely. Well, I've asked a few questions. I hope I haven't stolen your thunder in terms of the things that you'd like to ask, but it's really open to you guys now as the fans to ask any question you like. First, has anyone got a question on the away shirt?
Why?
What's your thoughts?
In terms of, I'm going to deflect that a little bit, because I think Bob and Steve, I don't want to put myself in it, but I think they picked it. It's vibrant, it's different, that's for sure. I think the younger generation might like it. I personally, I really like the blue one, the away one last year. But you know, it's something that we've got to go with, and hopefully, it because it's been so different. When we get promoted, hopefully people will say, you know what, that's the year we got promoted at the league, and it's pretty top. So hopefully it brings us some luck as well.
So, questions? Anyone? At the back, Dave.
Who are you going to replace Joel Kettle with? Any ideas?
Sorry, for the camera, who are you going to replace Joel Kettle with?
I've got to try and catch up with what's actually in the public domain. What's not in the public domain at the moment. Yeah.
Like I said before, it's hard to have 3 centre backs want to start. Every player wants to start. So Joel Kettle wants to start. Nathaniel Roturno wants to start. John McGunner wants to start. And what we've got to be mindful of is when you play in a team, is that you've got balance in your team. So, for example, Jordan Goss left-footed, important to keep him. Nathaniel Roturno is a left-footed centre-back. So Nathaniel Roturno is a centre-half. He will play a left-footed centre-back. We've also got another lad coming in. I haven't mentioned yet, but in terms of he's actually a right-back, but he can play centre-half as well. So when you're doing a team, you've got to make sure that you have players who can cover positions when you're having a squad, let's say a big team. So Nathaniel Roturno and I see Joe Magunda as being the 2 centre-backs. And what I will say is that I think Joel Kettle is a good centre back, and I think he did really well. And like I said, he's a good person. It was hard to lose him because we couldn't come to sort of an agreement. But I think the two centre backs, what we've got, I think we've got to draw on the positives. And like I said, see every player in a positive light. And what we've got to see is the players that we have got in and say, okay, then look how positive they are. We've just got a centre back who's won the league. So in terms of replacing Joel Kettle, replacement probably be the wrong word actually because we wanted to keep Joe. But at centre back, Nathaniel Roturno will play. And he's just won the league with Kettering, and he's a very good centre back. And the other one was, what attracted us with Nathaniel Roturno, he's played with Joe Magunda for nearly 2 or 3 seasons at Leicester City. So it's not like we're getting a centre back in who's 19 to replace, as a partner for Joel, or let's say Joe at the time. It's a centre back who's established. He's going to have that communication already because he knows Joe Magunda already. So it's having that relationship, and that makes it easier. And centre back's a key position. You've got to have that relationship. So that's what was mindful, that he knows the players around.
Okay, thanks. Good question, Dave. And we nearly got an announcement of a new player then, but
Stop. If it weren't filming, I'd go on.
Andrew.
I know it's very, very hard to give us an answer on this, but I think a lot of the times last season, especially the early start of the season, we tended to just to go to kicking over. We bypassed the midfield, where we seemed to lose a lot of games like that. Teams were getting aware of our type of football, and I feel that we could not deviate from that. Teams were coming down here who had got to know how we played, and we were beaten by it. Now, surely the players must know in their own minds, and you can't tell them what to do. Well, you can, but when they get on that park, they're void of ideas.
What I'm going to say is that since we've come in, we've scored 33 goals in the 15 games towards the back end of the season. At home, we played some football and played through the 3/3, and the team had a clear identity of how they're going to play. We're not going to kick it long. Even sometimes fans are saying, get it in the box, kick it up the field. We've got a clear identity on the training ground. The preparation is meticulous. Buster and Dex are there. Most training sessions, in fact every training session, they see the work that goes in it. But actually Buster told me that I've got a record of leaving the ground, the latest ever, which is about 20 past 10 or past 10. So the preparation for this team is going to be clear. We're going to have more than one way of playing, and the players are going to understand clearly their roles and responsibilities of what they've got to do in possession and out of possession. There's going to be no two ways about it. Away from home, it's not always conducive to play football. I remember playing Royston away, and I could not believe the state of the pitch. So sometimes you've got to be a bit more direct, and you've got to have a game plan. But what I will say is that the team is going to play, first of all, a brand of football to win games. That's going to be the key, to win games. And we've got enough flexibility within the team, a different style of player, what can do more than one thing. But the team's going to play a brand of football, what's going to win, but it's going to be attractive and play it. And that's going to be done in pre-season. And just on a coaching background, I'm going to say this, in terms of the application and the dedication, I want to reassure the fans, there's going to be no stone left unturned, and I'm going to be working, if it means me staying down there an extra hour and a half at training session to make sure we win games. That's the appetite and hunger, and I'm looking forward to speak to you during games. But I know Tom's got something to say on that as well.
You know, another thing that while we're talking about, I feel that we want a good general or good captain, which I don't think we had at times last season. The players were running about like headless chickens. They weren't getting anything from the field, from the centre half, whoever's captain. He can see what's going on. You can see what's going on. But you can't keep shouting. He should be able to look at the players and say, pull your finger out, you know, let's play it better.
I think you already described who's going to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Ryan Beswick is since we come in, Ryan Beswick, for example, if I look at him, and we didn't change Joel as the captain because he was a good people person and he had the respect of the group. But in terms of tactical awareness on the pitch, Ryan Beswick's come to me after 2 minutes at Aylesbury and said, Andy, they're playing 3-4-2-1. He said, how do you want us to change it? He goes, I've got an idea and I'll change it. When we played other teams, Ryan Beswick's gone, they're doing this. Ryan Beswick might not shout out in terms of scream and bottle, but what he is, he's tactically very, very astute. And he's got the respect for the players, and he's a leader in the changing room. Now, we haven't discussed sort of who's going to be the captain, but there's some sort of candidates out there. Tom's mentioned Jimmy already being a leader, Joe Magunda's already also a leader. So these players, there is captain material in there, and you're quite right. It's not always for us to say it. Sometimes, like Kingston in the way we come get the message on the pitch. If I just put 2 games that we lost last year since me and Gaz was in, Lowestoft, we lost Darnia, Ryan Beswick didn't play. Kingston away, we lost 2-1, Ryan Beswick didn't play. A lot of people mention Chris Late as being the main man, a great goal scorer. But when you took sort of him out of that hole and pocket, there was a big hole. Hence why we've identified Jimmy and we've identified Foley for that reason.
But then I think you've got to get like the second in command, because as you say, there's times when they're going to get injured that they won't play. Now, even at those times there, you've got nobody there being the general, and they're running around waiting for you to sort of give a little bit. It's not on the field.
You're right, you can only do so much at the end of the day off the field. You know, some players want to listen, some players know better than other people, but talking from somebody from the outside looking in last season, the stuff that I know had probably went on that actually shown in the performances during the season will never be allowed to happen this year. And it's just as simple as that. You know, some people are very, they're very placid, they let do things, but the players are here to do a job. Last year, my personal opinion was that I think some people, maybe even some players, were gliding along really and taking it all for a ride, And whilst from the outside, I knew playing Tamworth had a group of very, very good players. What I also knew we would do would be able to beat them on the football awareness that we had and the belief that we had against what a good player can do. And and that shone massively for me. There was players that weren't really sure of their roles when I came here. Best one in the world, they were being sent on the pitch and didn't even know why they were being sent on or what position they were playing in. And they're turning around to the dugout saying, "Where am I going?" It won't happen this season. And everybody, we weren't truly informed of what they meant to do, otherwise it's going to be a long season for them.
Can I just ask you something? In the
There was
games
an incident last year when you came up and joined us in the stand. You saw the game at a different angle and a different light. Because you were...
He asked me to go and say you wanted me to take care of Ivor in the stand, he said to me that day. But can I just ask you a question and flip it on the other side?
Yeah.
Since me and Gaz come in, did you see the players not working? Or in fact, I'll read it. Since me and Gaz came in the last 15 games, did you see a togetherness on the pitch? Did you see a team which was organised? In possession and out of possession? And a team that was playing for the fans? So the questions in terms of directing, I've got to actually agree with Tom, because I actually seen some training sessions down here, and I thought I'd do things slightly different, but then you've got to back the manager. But since, what I will say is the players obviously have been digged out a little bit. I'm going to say this, I actually love going into the change room and see Joe Magunda. I love going into the change room and see Joe Kettle and Chris Lane and Jazz Singh and Ryan Beswick and Tyrell Wynn, because I thought these guys are giving me the opportunity, one, to change my family's life and my life, because they're going out there and grafting. So when we came in, we used the GPS stats, and I can tell you now, if I showed you the GPS stats and put them in, that's running stats. Players are running 12 and 13 kilometres per game. Before they was running 8 and 7 kilometres per game. So they're giving me and guys 5 and 4 kilometres per game more. And that's not just one player, that's across the board. So since we come in, what I would say is that we had a plan, we stuck to the plan in possession and out of possession, and the players was playing for the shirt, for Tamworth and for the fans. And that's why players, if you notice, had to come into the form after, and they sat down and spoke to fans, because that's important. We understand that link between fans and players, and show some respect for the shirt and respect for the fans of the club.
He will come up with something good.
Season, right? Charlie Shaw, he had the most fantastic game, he scored a fantastic goal. Yet the following week, he wasn't even in he was on the bench. Well, what does that do for his confidence? He's a local lad, when United, the team that played Saturday, where's Charlie? He was man of the match. Wasn't we picking?
It's a good question, actually. Charlie Shaw is a versatile player. And
Charlie,
yeah, he can play centre mid, he's played right wing for us since Ming Gascoigne played right back. When you're picking a team though, what you've got to do sometimes, you've got to match the players up physically. So for example, we played a team the week after where we're playing against two wingers who are rapid in terms of sprint speed. So, and they isolate players good 1v1. So from a tactical point of view, it's not about just picking the players because they play well. It's about picking sometimes the players are going to suit up against someone really, really well. So I knew the week after we were playing against two wingers who are rapid, and they might trouble because Charlie Shaw's position's not right back. That's not his natural position, centre mid. They might trouble him. And Christian Green at the time was coming back. We had Kyron Savannah, who's got a pro contract at Wimbledon now, and we felt at the time that them two would be better suited to come up against the two wingers, and we didn't concede a goal the week after. Whereas at Royston, Charlie Shaw played centre mid. He did really well. We were 2-0 away from him. And the week after, we had Kingsley, who was obviously, I thought was the best team in the league at the time. We played Kingsley, and Charlie Shaw started on merit of playing really well, but that's a position what's suited to him. So sometimes when the fans see that, I can hear they can sort of their disgruntlement. What it is that sometimes you pick a team from a tactical point of view.
yeah. Oh, I appreciate that lot, but I just thought it would have knocked his head about a bit.
It's,
And if I played football myself, and it
Yeah.
good again, then you're not picked. It's not.
Yeah.
it's,
And then again, you're the manager, so
if I can just say, it is really difficult, you know, even as a manager, you know, make no mistake about it, managers sit there going, have I done the right thing today? You know, I was too hard on him today. Oh, hang on, I wasn't hard on him, enough on him today. You know, if I could speak to him now, I'd apologise to him, or if I could speak to him now, I'd probably tear his head off, or whatever it may be. Everything's great in hindsight, and you're trying to be fair to the players who have done well the week before, but also beat the team you're playing against. And ultimately, you want the best of both worlds. You want everybody to be playing all the time and beating the team that you're playing next, and keep the same thing. Sometimes it don't work that way. Sometimes you have to change it, right? Because that's what I'm here for. That's what managers are here for, to win games of football. So if I've changed it and I've won the game, I've still got to manage the players who haven't played or haven't played enough, and that comes into talking to them. If I've changed it and I've lost the game, then you have to question yourselves.
And either as well, there's sometimes in the change room that there's two times I look at last year in the 15 games where I've gone in to the players and said, I've made a mistake. Kingsley away, I said this before, in here I sat with the lads and said, we're going to play 3-6-1 because of the way Kingsley played. And the lad said, Andy, why are we going to do that when we've won sort of like 7 out of 10 at the time or something? And I said, because Kings Lynn, this is how they play, and the way we play, our philosophy will be suited up. The players went, you know, we've run such a good run, so sometimes you've got to have a buy-in from the players. After 25 minutes, we changed it, went 3-6-1, and we created 2 or 3 chances. Tyrell scores were 1-1, and I went into the change rooms and said, we made that mistake in the 25 minutes. We should have just gone. So we don't always get it right, like Tom said. Sometimes you get it wrong, sometimes you don't mean to, and you try to be adaptable on the pitch, so it's not every moment of every minute you're going to get it right, but so it's a valid question in terms of what you said.
Thank you, Ivor. Good question. Yes, sir.
I'm really optimistic for this coming season with the players that we've signed, and also the fact that we've got basically a squad now already assembled. We're not waiting until the end of the season, so I'm really looking forward to that. The only thing I'm worried about is goalkeeping position. Most teams in this league carry 2 keepers. I know we've got Jazz and there's the young lad Aiden, fair enough, but most teams carry 2 experienced ones. And last season and the season before, when Jazz wasn't playing, we got a goalkeeper in on loan that didn't know people. And the season before, we played academy goalies from other teams, and that cost us dear. What's your feelings on the goalkeeping position this year?
The man next to me had 7 goalkeepers, I think, last year. For a start.
Not at the same time though.
You've got good contacts.
Again, like you work to a budget. That's key. You've got to work to a budget. There is sort of a couple of keepers we've identified. But then when you get, it's very rare at non-league that you get 2 very good non-league keepers and one of them being prepared to sit on the bench. So at non-league, you know, you've got to be mindful, and then obviously you've got to manage a budget. But that's something that we've sort of thought about, and actually it's something actually that is after this is finished, I'm going to speak to Tom and speak to Gaz about, because someone's come to mind. But I'll let you technically one of the speak about the 7 goalies.
Yeah.
Some great contacts, as you say.
As long as he's got contacts,
We had
We got rid of the 5 of them after one game.
No, we had to be fair, we had one lad. We got him on loan. I won't name who he was, but we got him on loan. And when he turned from one of the pro clubs, when he turned up in his 70 grand Mercedes, I think I've done something right. And he's actually in. I think he's playing in the he'll be in the Premier League next year. He's actually at Aston Villa, so he'll be in the Premier League. So. It's a very difficult one to keep 2 good goalkeepers happy. You're damned always, to be honest, whether you have a goalie. If you have a goalie on the bench, you could sit there forever, especially if you've got a good, really good number one. Trying to afford 2 really good number ones for them to battle it out, somebody always loses. So it's a real difficult one to get it right. They've got to have, the life of a goalie is not the easiest one because they can sit there for 40 games and not move. But we are looking at a few goalies. It's something we've discussed this week. The other side to it being, we can just simply go out and get a loan one from a football league club if we need to.
Well, that's fair enough. Yeah, that's a good answer. Thanks very much.
The other thing as well, with the lads who you said about getting sorted, I know the fans will sort of mention some of that on forums. That was to ensure that we can work with the players in pre-season, because pre-season is such a big part of any season, so it's adding that squad, the core of it, to work with.
Cool. Anybody else got a question they'd like to ask?
One for the manager.
Clive.
One area that I thought was a big weakness last season was corners. If you look at the goals we conceded from corners, we didn't seem to be able to defend them. And we hardly ever scored a goal from a corner. We got one near the end of the season, but we never, some games we'd have 15, 20 corners, and we never looked like scoring on any of them. I know we probably haven't got the players who could win it in the air, but I thought it was a big weakness last season.
I can only speak, like I said, I can only speak for the 15 games that we was in terms of being accountable, if you like. We conceded 1 goal from a corner against Lowestoft actually at the back stick in the 15 games that we played. So 1 in 15 is decent in terms of conceding, and we only scored, I think, 2 actually. We scored at Colville, Tyler Waite scored 1, and then Jordan Goff scored 1, so we scored 2. But the mindset when we come in was, I looked at the amount of goals that was conceded of the team, which was frightening. So the first thing was to be defensively structured in terms of set pieces defensively, and in terms of structured out of possession. This year, that's something that we'll sort of like target more in terms of set pieces and corners and free kicks. So I sort of was aware of that, but you can't run one build in a day, if you like. You've got to have building blocks, and I think making sure that you don't concede goals from set pieces and being structured is possibly more important to start off with than the goals sort of that you score from them.
But it was both ends.
Yeah.
And early on, in a lot of the films, because we see all the games now on the telly, that's film. And it was a blatant weakness at times. Every corner, every was probably picking up the plate. You could see their danger man would go up, and it wouldn't even.
In training, we had a rule. If your man can see, if your man to man marker, if he scores, you're doing 8 box-to-box extras. So in training, they're doing 8 box-to-boxes if your man scored. It's simple as that, because you've got to be accountable for the player.
See, for me, this is sort of roles reversed. For last season, up to Christmas Day, I think we'd scored about 38 goals, 31 of them were from set pieces, from either corners or free kicks. Because that's, again, probably because of the mix of players that we had, we knew that we weren't going to score a lot of goals in open play, but what we were going to do was hurt teams when it comes to set pieces, and on the other side, we didn't let in many goals from set pieces. So it's about, we went too far one way and here's gone too far the other, so it's about finding the happy balance in the middle.
But you didn't too bad, you were in the playoffs, basically.
The strange thing, we couldn't score an open play before Christmas, but we scored an open play after. Yeah.
Set pieces, don't you?
After Christmas, we
in the league, you're going to have to score goals from set pieces.
Up until Christmas, we scored nothing but set pieces and corners. After Christmas, we couldn't score a set piece in the corner. So it's just how it goes sometimes. But if you want to be at the top, you've got to do both. Realistically. But in this league, there's very few great goals scored against you in this league. usual sat here watching games last year, and you could probably sit there and maybe remember 4 or 5 goals that got scored against you, because the rest are actually mistakes. The mistakes by players, whether they want to hear or not, it's mistakes by players. There's very few, you know, I remember a game where there's a lad, Ravi, scored a fantastic goal against us. He's one that even last season I can go, yeah, that's a great goal. But other than that, there's not many great goals scored in football at this level. What there is there's lots of mistakes that lead to goals. And therefore, we've got to stop those mistakes. And that's where it comes down to, again, this side of the table.
The question is, now you've got the best players, do you think we can get either in the playoffs or even get promoted to the next league? We're going to the Premier League.
Tamworth Football Club will be playing in the Conference North next season, because I believe in the players that we've got, and on a personal level, I've got an inner desire and an inner belief to ensure that we get promoted.
That's the belief. That's
and everyone's speaking about the form of Tamworth. I can only speak for the time that we was here, and in 15 games we would have been second in the league, 1 point behind Kettering on form guide in the last 15 games that we played. So I can only speak for that, and that's for me that's title winning form, and that's what we're trying to take for this coming season.
Well, according to most of the team's fans in our league, they've got us down as favourites and we're leading. And Starbridge behind us. So,
but they also think that we're spending lots of money, but we're not compared to what the others.
last year we was going to upgrade.
I think it's something I said to the chaps. Obviously, we've had numerous meetings and conversations over the last 3 months, and what I would say for this season is last season, you know, obviously after the first few months, everyone knew where the club stood in terms of the league. This season, you know, as I've chatted to these guys, I do believe we'll go from doing chasing last season. This season will become the hunted, so to speak. You know, people are now out there, as I've said to Andy, people are now out there, you know, Tamworth are a massive club, but they're out there waiting for you to fall down, you know, and it's very easy. It's very easy being 15th, 14th, 13th, and everyone just around you, and you win a game, you lose a game. It's very different being 1 and 2, and every week the teams are waiting for you to drop it. You know, it's very, very different, and that's where it comes down to the change room that has to be created, and the players that come in, they've got to understand from the first game of the season, there's a lot of eyes on this place, because as spent a lot of time with the people at the club, and you know what I believe is, as a football club, we're above the head of this football club, how it's run, the people that are involved is above the level that we're at the moment, but the body is at the level we're at. This side of the table's got to make sure the body joins up with the head at the end of this season, and it's just as simple as that.
Who's your player to listen to?
The biggest man. I'm going to reiterate again. I'm going to reiterate and say this.
Because if you're a player,
yeah,
it's got to be awkward. There's 3 of you sharing instructions.
Okay, there was 2 of us last year, and I'll just say how it worked last year, for example. Guys, like I said, man-to-man management skills was tremendous without that. So in the changing room, in terms of motivating players, he was excellent. In terms of a tactical point of view, obviously the tactics brought out a few times. From a tactical point of view and a coaching side, that's my field. That's what I love and engage. That engages me. So in terms of a tactical side, that's what engage. And Gaz was the man-to-man management. Like I said, it's not to change what we're doing. What it is to do is to add the experience and the guile that Tom's got into that mix. That's important, but not to change the structure or to change sort of the messages that are being given out to the players. It's to add that complement to it.
What I could say is, although you're talking about 2 guys becoming 3, you've got the situation where in every changing room up and down the country, you've got the manager, you've got the assistant manager, and you've got the coach, all dealing with players.
Yeah.
So what's different?
The difference are now. Hang on. The difference is now. Last year we didn't have a manager and assistant. We had joint managers, right? So there's one. Now You come in, no disrespect here, right? All I'm trying to do is get me out around how it's going to work.
He'll come and sit in the stand and watch from the stand.
I'm going to come and stand with you, aren't I?
He said, "Don't come drinking with me."
But I think people put a lot of onus on these things, and I understand why, because you know how it works. But at the end of the day, you know, it's about. I'm not just talking here, but I'm talking everywhere. It's about management teams. They will have strengths that I haven't got, and I've got strengths that they won't have, and that's where we, you know, there's sort of 4 people in my marriage at the moment. Do you know what I mean? There's myself, there's him, there's guys, and there's my wife. You know what I mean? And we're just constantly talking along the same wavelength. But that's what we've been in discussions for a couple of months now about the players. There's no players that have been signed here that I haven't known about. I haven't been in agreement with.
My point was, you don't think it'll be a problem in the dressing room?
No, none whatsoever. And you know, as I say, you've got situations being where everybody needs somebody to talk to, if that's the right word, because everyone will sit there and go, between us, before we turn up, everyone will sit there and go, have you thought about this? You know, what about that, etc. And players listen to different people. You know, that's in every change room. Players listen to different people, and so as long as the 3 of us are all singing on the same wavelength, both on and off the pitch, if there's any concerns, then I wouldn't be here.
You mentioned family in there. I'm just saying this openly, is that the club's the most important thing. I haven't been to a club like it before. In terms of like, it's a family atmosphere. The fans and the committee are the most important people. The decisions, what gets delivered to the players, will be spoke about. If, on a personal level, if I feel that's not operating and working the way it is, for the best of the club, I'd remove myself. Because I've not been to a club where it means so much to the fans. Like after the game, I've never seen like so many fans that are interested in about the team on the pitch, about how the club's being run, and like I said, Bob and Steve, they love the club. So if that message is not being delivered correctly, basically paramount what is this club gets promoted, and no matter whether there's 10 people in here, or there's 2 people or 3 people, it's got to be, the focus has got to be to get this club out of this league, because the club's bigger than this league. Like Tom said, the head's there and the body's got to go to it. So I can assure you that when the message is delivered to the players, clear roles and responsibilities, and the players will know exactly what they're doing on a match day. Because otherwise I won't put money into it.
With best one about behind the scenes, we've gone so far in depth with this, there's nowhere to turn now in terms of what the players and what their expectation levels are. It's pretty full on, to be perfectly honest with you. So, you know, as long as we're on the same wavelength, it's no different to any of the board and board people. Most important thing is they all click and they start playing games of football, and you know, it doesn't matter whether you're joint managers, manager and assistant manager. Over the years I've been a lot, to be fair. You're only sometimes as good as the people around you. You know, you're talking about players on the pitch that are only as good as the players around them at times. They can't do it all on their own. And it's exactly the same on and off it. People can't do it all on their own, so it is about teamwork both on and off the pitch, and ultimately that's what it comes down to.
Put yourself in Swidger's position, right? You win. Who's you going to put first?
I'll be there first.
He helped me last year, he helped me last year, he jumped on my back. I nearly had 2 Achilles on my legs. My ligaments nearly dislocated. Big lad. He's strong as an ox.
He'll be sliding down his knees at the corner flag. Me and Smudge will be fine.
I've got 2 big bags on to you, Andy.
Brilliant. Would anyone else like to ask a question? A great array of questions tonight, which has been fantastic. Is there anyone else that would like to
We've got
ask
a new
a question?
goalkeeping coach yet.
Great question, and we'll let you know on Tuesday night. But obviously we've targeted sort of someone. And on that note, I'm going to say about Lee. Lee Evo is a big loss to the club because the thing is he's a great guy first and foremost, and his knowledge of the league and knowledge of the players and his relationship with Jazz was excellent. So he's a massive loss. Again, he's had a little one recently. I think that was part of his decision of why he moved on, because he wanted that commitment as well to his he's obviously having that bonding time with his child, what's just been born, and he's obviously full-time in the day. But he will be a great loss. Just like Joel Ward, who was going to come in as our physio, he's gone on to Burton Albion first team. So that's something that we're targeting again. And what I would say is that there's people at the club like Kieran has moved on to Swansea, Joel Ward's moved on to Burton Albion, so it just shows you sort of what kind of staff members are at the club and how they're allowed to sort of progress.
I'll just say it's like lots of things, you know, people come and go all the time, you know, the fans, the club, etc., all just stays there, players. It's all, in the best of the world, a lot of it's a bit of a conveyor belt, and it's about where they get on and where they get off, because players will come and go, they'll go lower, they'll go higher, some will stay for years. And it's the same for staff, they get opportunities to go and test themselves at full-time festival clubs, etc., and, you know, and they've got to do what's right for themselves. I personally didn't know the goalkeeping coach, but you know, everyone speaks very highly of him. But I'm sure there'll be another great goalkeeping coach by the time we come in season starts, something like that.
We've had some great cup runs and time.
No, we're not going to put any cups to the side this year. I just want to say that I've seen cups being sort of chucked away, if you like, and there's going to be an infrastructure where every game we play we want to win, because winning's a mentality, not to just chuck a cup to the side. Obviously we've got a development process here as well with the academy lads like Harrison James, for example, play, and he'll be involved in terms of pre-season, that, but he played a lot of games, or not a lot of games, but towards the end of the season he played some of them early season. But then it won't be a case of where we chuck 11 players, the academy boys, into a cup, because that's not good for their development, and this club needs to be winning games on the football pitch, and that's why every cup that we go into, we're going to look to win every game.
That's the best thing I've heard tonight.
Cup winner,
Yeah, sure.
Is it right, hopefully then this pre-season, or when we first start playing the friendlies, we're not going to have loads of trialists playing?
Really good question. There's going to be, let's say, a maximum of 24, if you like, and we'll cut that down, and what we're trying to do is keep that focus on the players that we're going to be working with.
I would say I think we're probably pretty behind the scenes. We're pretty much set on what we think it's going to be at the moment. So there'll be what we believe the squad is, and then probably a few players that have the opportunity to surprise us, and then probably one player who we know exactly what he can do. But there'll be sort of only 20 odd players, and they'll be narrowed down quite quickly. And after the first couple of weeks, you'll be down to sort of 20 players, and that'll be it.
We've got two big games, aren't there? You know, West Brom and Villa, which will be reasonably good attendance, you'd hope. So we really need to see probably the better side we can field for them games. Because people will come along and straight away, oh, it's people for rubbish, you know. I mean, you've got 7 trialist players, and they don't know that. So it's important that we get still in the big games like that, where you
I think we already know what the potential is for the starting 11 and 12 sort of players that we've got. We already know where we're at with that. So with those games, you know, it's very important to do pre-season very well, because a lot of fans will come along for those games, and what we need them to do is stay. So if we're not going to put out a decent side, they're not going to come back. So by the time those games come around, we'll be well on our way to knowing exactly where we are. And to be fair, the squad's practically, it's not far away at the moment. Yeah.
This has been like insightful, because the fans have been able to explain to the fans sort of like pre-season. So for example, last year you'll know there's a fan that 2 players got injured in the first game because they played the game after 7 days. Chris Lake and Ryan Beswick got injured, and Ryan was a long-term injury. So at the same time where you want to play your strongest team in pre-season every game and for every minute, you've got to be mindful of that. One, every player is going to have that opportunity to wear the Tamworth shirt. And we just mentioned about wearing the Tamworth shirt, show the hunger and desire to wear the Tamworth shirt. And players who do that will start games. At the same time though, you've got to manage players to ensure that our first game's against West Brom, so we'll have had 6 training sessions by then, but then at the same time that we don't get a player injured for the sake of trying to put on a over the sort of odds performance. It's got to be sort of managed correctly as well. So if you do see sort of after 60 minutes things slightly changing, we're managing the players as well to make sure that come the start of the season we're on firing on all cylinders. So for the fans to know that's important, so that they understand the reasoning behind it.
I've got a question. When does training start for the first team? What's the
25th of June.
25th of June?
Yeah, Tuesday. We'll start at about 7:15 and we'll finish as Buster knows about 11 o'clock at night.
Cool.
There's got to be a work ethic because you don't win things.
And fixtures are out on the 12th of July.
I said earlier, I'm optimistic for the start of the season, and I'm confident that when we start off really well, that we'll bring a lot more fans back in to the club, because they've been starved of success for a few years, and once they see a winning team down here, I'm sure we'll be hitting the 1,000 mark again.
I'm excited by that as well. I know some of the fans went down and towards the back end we had like 700s or was it in them ones, and it felt like I said it to Kev, that the lamp feels like you've got like 3,000-4,000 there. Like sometimes at the back when they're celebrating, it's like wait, they look around the ground, it's like wow. So we're hoping for the same thing as well. But just like on a, and I know I can speak for Gaz, and I'm sure Tom's got that appetite as well. But on a personal level, it's vital that we do well on a personal level, because it's that hunger for the fans to do well, but also on a personal level to do well to sort of change my family's life. So in terms of working behind the scenes, it's non-stop, and it's going to be like that consistent until we get the results. And if that means like staying and keeping the keys and locking up at night, so be it. If that takes winning.
Fabulous. Well, thanks Tom, thanks Andrew, thanks everyone.